I addressed the joint session of the state legislature, and in that speech, I did not announce who my lieutenant governor would be. Yesterday was about introducing myself and allowing the legislature and the people of South Dakota a chance to get to know me. Today's a different matter. Today I'm going to announce the selection for the next lieutenant governor of South Dakota. And I have to say, I've been blown away by the number of people that have reached out to me, either with suggestions for others for lieutenant governor or they themselves. And it was very humbling because there are a long shopping list of very qualified people that I know and respect. Some of them were recommending others, and some of them were nominating themselves. I will tell you this, the process I went through to pick my lieutenant governor was pretty extensive. I had a very distinct set of boxes to check with higher priorities as I went down the list. And the farther we went into it, the more it became clear to me what the qualities were and the boxes we checked. First of all, I wanted a person with integrity above all else. I talked yesterday about some of the qualities, integrity being one, his knowledge of the process, somebody that could step in and take the reins at the Senate and run that smoothly, somebody that has experience in the committee process. So, you probably guessed by now, I will say this. The man I picked understands the complexities of the state education formula. He understands the complexities of our property tax system. He shares my passions on many issues and finds ways to improve them. He knows the legislative rules. He will preside over the Senate with experience and professionalism. He knows more about South Dakota's history than any man I know. And he uses that knowledge to help shape where our state is heading in the future. When I was in the legislature, he was serving in the governor's office. We worked together on a number of issues. Sometimes we weren't on the same side, but we always had a lot of mutual respect. Later, this individual served myself and Governor Noem in our office. He's also been a leader in the legislature over the past couple years. And I'm sure by now you've probably already guessed who that pick is. But ladies and gentlemen, I am more than pleased to announce my selection for the next Lieutenant Governor of the state of South Dakota, Tony Venhuizen.
Well, thank you all. Governor, thank you very much. It's very humbling to be here today, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate this nomination. You know, I first met Larry Rhoden more than 20 years ago, and we've worked closely together for more than 10 or 15 years. I've always admired Larry. During tough legislative debates, he was always a voice of common sense, and he knew how to get things done. We worked together during the Noem administration as well. I'm sure neither of us will ever forget those days during the COVID pandemic, as much as we might want to. He was a steady presence, and he always went back to our conservative principles. And I know Governor Noem appreciated that, and we all did. Governor Rhoden is the right man at the right time. We face some tough legislative issues this year. He will bring the same sense of openness, civility, and conservative common sense to this new role that he's always brought to the roles he's served in here in Pierre. I know my legislative colleagues are excited to work with Governor Rhoden, and so am I. Those of you who know me know I'm no stranger to these halls. My love for this place came from my grandfather, Henry Poppin, who was a state senator from DeSmet for 26 years. I visited him here as a child. I learned to value our citizen legislature from him. Grandpa was a calm, steady person who valued civility and common sense, kind of like you. And as appropriations chairman for 12 years, he prioritized the sound fiscal management of this state. I grew up in Armour. I graduated in a class of 21 people. My dad was the dentist in Armour, the dentist. But he actually grew up on a ranch north of Wasta, just a little bit south of Union Center. Close for that part of the state anyway. Yeah.
Next door neighbor.
Yeah. My mom was a grade school teacher who stayed home with me and my brothers after we were born. When I was a senior, I was a Senate page. That'll be 24 years ago next week. That was Larry's first year in the legislature. It was during that time that I met my wife, Sarah, in the Senate lobby. She was here visiting her dad, Dennis Dugard, who was a state senator. I'm happy you're here today. Sarah's an electrical engineer. We've been married for 20 years now. Of course, none of us could do these jobs without the support of our families. And I know Sarah will be a great second lady for our state. We have 3 great kids. Henry, who's in middle school, who's named after my grandpa, and Elizabeth and Madeline, who are in grade school. We spend most of our time chasing them around. Volleyball, dance, jazz band, show choir, just like a lot of parents our age. The kids have been asking me for weeks now who the new lieutenant governor is going to be. They've been obsessed with it. They've all been guessing, and for the most part, not me. It was fun last night to finally call them and give them the news. They're a huge security risk, and so I couldn't tell them until last night. They received permission to each tell one friend this morning prior to this announcement. So if there's a leak, it came from Robert Frost Elementary School.
If there's a leak in the governor's office, it's usually the governor.
That's right. That's right. Sarah and the kids will be here later today, so you've all been warned. I've always felt a call to service. It's in my blood. It's in Sarah's family too. My entire public career, my years on the Board of Regents, as Chief of Staff in the State House, have all been about keeping South Dakota a strong, steady, well-run state. That will be my approach as Lieutenant Governor too. I have had the privilege of working closely with 3 excellent Lieutenant Governors, Dennis Dugard and Matt Michaels and Larry Rhoden, and they're all here today. The job of the Lieutenant Governor is to be a supporter and a partner to the governor. You can't be ready to step in if you're not a partner. I'm excited to help Governor Rhoden lead our state. I also value the Lieutenant Governor's role as the President of the Senate. The Lieutenant Governor has the unique position of having a constitutional role in 2 separate branches. And that means that he can and should be a link between the governor and the legislature. I look forward to filling that role. I resigned from the State House just before this press conference today, so I can be ready to be sworn in as soon as I'm confirmed. I'm looking forward to visiting with my legislative colleagues and answering their questions. And at this point, I would be happy to take your questions too. Thank you.
You guys can make sure your microphones are on, please.
Governor, was there a particular moment, either when you were in the legislature or in when Venhuizen was in the governor's office, that really stuck out to you as you were thinking about this process?
The answer is no. You know, as Tony said, the first time I met him, he was a student regent when I first come to the legislature, and we've joked about it in years past that I didn't have that good a first impression of him as a young man. And but you know, that evolved, as I became a legislator and a leader, and to see him mature and what he brought to the value. And then when he worked for, in Dennis's office and worked in a different capacity. And then my last 2 years when I came back to the legislature, I was in a leadership position in the House and worked very closely with Tony and the leadership in the House on a number of different issues, and became more and more impressed with Tony's abilities and his thoughtfulness and his general knowledge and his skill set. And then shortly after that, he's on our transition team and chief of staff of the governor's office. And it really developed our relationship, and just we think on the same terms, and just the common sense and clarity he can bring to a conversation was just more than impressive to anyone that dealt with him. So it was a long evolution, but needless to say, I have a huge amount of respect for Tony.
Mr. Venhuizen, Austin Goff, the Dakota Scout. Like you said, you've worked across 3 different governors' administrations. You've chronicled the history of governors. You've been a lawmaker now. Now you reach this point. What does it feel like, and what do you see yourself being like as a leader in the office?
It's a pretty surreal feeling. I'm not sure I've entirely absorbed it, but I'm looking forward to it. And I do think, having worked in the governor's office and been chief of staff and worked with the lieutenant governor, 3 of them, I have a very good idea of what that role entails and what it needs to be. A partner to the governor, a support to the governor's staff, a bridge back to the legislature, and I'm looking forward to that.
Joshua Heyer, South Dakota Searchlight. Lieutenant Governor, Lieutenant Governor. I wanted to ask, you'd been talked about clarity, invoked the Dugard administration. In 2011, they had to make cuts, and it was kept simple with a conversation about $127 million structural deficit. I'm wondering if you kind of give that to us today. What is it, and why are we having to make those cuts? And how you think about it?
Yes. I don't have my cheat sheet with me. Coming into the governor's budget this year, when you just looked at revenue growth, natural revenue growth, and mandatory expenditure growth, there was a structural deficit of, I think, $51 million, if I remember right. Now, Governor Noem's budget eliminated the structural deficit. That's the proposal that's before the legislature now. There were some discretionary spending increases, such as inflation for the big 3. There were a few, and then there were a number of cuts, as you all know. So the budget that's been proposed is balanced. And as the governor said yesterday, as we have the budget conversation now over the rest of the session, unless our revenue improves, we're in a zero-sum game. We restore a cut here, we have to cut there. So that'll be one of the key challenges we're looking at for over the next 6 weeks.
Dominic Dausch with the Argus Leader. I think it was about a week ago, Tony, where I had asked about something related to Lieutenant Governor pick, and you had said, well, I'm glad somebody thought of me that way. How long has this opportunity kind of been in front of you, or how long have you been pondering this?
I would say I've been aware of the possibility for a month or so. And we had the conversation, and the governor offered it to me on Monday.
Dan Santella with KELOLAND News. Lieutenant Governor Venhuizen, given your focus on running for and holding a seat in the South Dakota legislature, was there any hesitancy to accept this role at all?
There wasn't any hesitancy to accept the role. I've always served when I've been called to, and I'm very honored to accept it. It's very bittersweet to leave the State House. I'm really going to miss that.
And sort of a follow-up for the governor, did you have any hesitancy to take someone like Tony from the House, a voice on whom you can count, someone that you really can rely upon to kind of vacate that role, or was that sort of a secondary consideration?
Well, it was a secondary consideration, but not an insignificant one, because I know the value of Tony in this process. And so that did weigh on me to a certain degree. But, you know, it's a value choice. The good he can do for the state of South Dakota and for my office in helping the citizens of the state of South Dakota are of greater value with me than where he's at now.
Joe Stevie, Dakota Scout. I asked Monday about 2026 plans, and you had said you're laser focused on the legislature. A lot of folks are trying to glean what the lieutenant governor pick will mean for 2026, and maybe this question is for both of you, but, you know, Tony, you're seen as a dusty guy. Can we glean that potentially you don't run in 2026 by Tony taking this position?
Answer is no. You can't glean that, but
Have you made a decision?
I have not. And I have no reason to not be honest with you. But I will say, when I picked a lieutenant governor, I had to be comfortable that regardless of what the future holds, whether I serve 2 years and ride off into the sunset back to my ranch or decide to run, whatever the choice is, I wanted somebody that was all in for me. So that's where we're at right now.
Do you care to address that at all?
I don't have anything to add.
Grant Green with Dakota News Now and Dakota Territory. Lieutenant Governor, congratulations. You had proposed, removing property taxes and substituting that for a state sales tax. And if both of y'all want to touch on that, that'd be great. I just want to know, kind of where y'all stand now as like a unit, as a part of one cabinet, on where you hope that bill progresses, going forward.
Yeah, well, we're a team and the governor is the leader of the team. So it will be up to him where that issue progresses. He said yesterday that he wants to have a conversation about property tax this year in the legislature. And frankly, that's why I brought the bill I brought, is that I think we need to have that conversation too. And I hoped that a bold proposal would maybe inspire more of a conversation than we've seen in the last couple of years. So I won't be in the State House anymore, so I won't be advancing any of my bills at this point. I'll be transferring them to other sponsors.
All right, we'll take 2 more questions.
I would respond to that as well, because I think that's a very good question, a fair question. I will say this, I talked about it yesterday, that I would convene a meeting, and we're already taking steps. A couple hours from now, we're going to have a meeting with leadership in this room. We do every Wednesday, and we're going to have a conversation about establishing a working group.
All right, 2 more questions.
Yeah, Blake Trolley, Dakota News Now and Dakota Territory News. Governor, with that, there's a lot of proposals that have been thrown at this. Is there any bill that's kind of got a breakaway in your mind? Anything that you see as something you'd like to pass this year?
Well, that's why it's so valuable to convene the interested parties, because there are good ideas. Some of them aren't workable, some of them that, in my view, make no sense at all. But that's why you get around the table and allow everybody to share their thoughts and ideas.
Last question.
How many were on your short list? 8?
Well, that's, I had a shorter list, and I would say 5. And there were a lot more than that were very viable candidates that had reached out to me, and so it was one of the toughest decisions I've ever made. So.
Thank you, everyone. Please.